It's actually happening as we have a massive Lakers update to go over today following a new report that has dropped revealing Rob Pelinka's master plan surrounding one player in particular. We're going to break down exactly who that is and discuss what it means going forward, as well as a few other updates as things are really starting to pick up surrounding this team. But before we get into it all, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Lakers content. You're going to want to stay tuned to the end of the video, as well as we have an interesting tidbit there at the end. But folks, let's dive right into it. There's a lot to go over today. Obviously, the Lakers are in a very intriguing spot. We know that they need to make additions. A trade is imminent at this point. It's just a matter of whether that's going to be in the next few days or, of course, the next few weeks. We know a trade is going to happen for this team, and some new reports have dropped revealing the most likely outcome right now is surrounding one particular player. But let's start with a pretty big update here that dropped from Brett Siegel last night. And this is going to lead into what we're going to be talking about today very fluidly here. So you can see this here from Brett Siegel. They're actively looking for a new defensive player on the perimeter / wing. I'd expect them to make a trade for one by the end of the month. Via Brett Siegel, Lakers are active in the wing market. Now, of course, it seems like they're not going to be going for, centers or anything like that. They've acquired, I think they have their center depth there. You have, of course, DeAndre Ayton. You have Maxi Kleber, you have Jackson Hayes. Those are your three guys you're going to be rocking. And it seems now their number one priority is on the wing. And of course, if we think back to literally a video yesterday and even the days before, weeks before, DeAnthony Melton seemed to be initially their number one target in free agency. And of course, they were waiting for him to be ready. They were going to sign him. And there was reports coming out that that was going to be the case. Obviously, since then, that has fallen through. Mark Stein came out and said that it is most likely team at this point is the Warriors, which it is what it is. They needed to pivot, and they need to pivot very, very quickly. And look at some of the potential, wings that are available both in the free agency market and the trade market. Wiggins, Matisse Thybulle, Marcus Smart, Herb Jones, Ayo Dosunmu. So, of course, I covered a lot of these, but the one we're going to be focusing on today is Marcus Smart. Of course, we'll have videos on Andrew Wiggins and things like that. But I think at this juncture, following some new reports that have dropped and some new dominoes that have fallen, Marcus Smart is by far the most likely option for this team. You can see this tweet here from Michael Scotto. He basically goes on to say that the Spurs made a trade of Macaulay Branham, Blake Wesley, and a second-round pick to the Wizards for Kelly Olynyk. You might be thinking, why does that affect, of course, anything the Lakers are doing? ESPN first report, Wizards now have a roster overflow and will need to adjust via cuts or trades. And that's where things start to obviously impact the Lakers directly. And this was, of course, a couple of days ago. We knew even before this trade, and of course they did it so that way they could, take on some salary, all those different things. They did this move so they can, and if you're the Lakers, you now have to take advantage of the fact that the Wizards knowingly, while making this move, had to open up a roster spot, right? That's something they knew they had to do. And at this point now, a trade needs to happen, whether that's via cuts or most likely a trade. And you can see this here, a Smart buyout and the Lakers signing would be a nice rebound from potentially losing out on Melton. There's a couple different ways this can go here. Either A, like it mentions in the tweet here, the Wizards will buy out Marcus Smart and the Lakers can sign him. That's a possibility. If we think about some of the other buyout candidates, Bradley Beal, players like that. But there's also a chance that they go ahead and trade him. However, the buyout option makes things a lot more interesting now. And because of the fact that, whether they go for a trade or they go for it, in the form of a buyout, it makes things very intriguing because obviously, if you're going to make a trade for a guy like Marcus Smart, we'll dive into like a mock trade here in a minute. It would have to be somebody who isn't it basically just salary filler, right? Because you're not going to give up a ton of assets, especially for a team in the Washington Wizards who desperately, need to get off of a player. It's not like they're have any leverage here in this scenario. Now they could, decide to go with somebody else. They have no use for Marcus Smart at this point, right? The Washington Wizards. They're not trying to. They have a decent team. I don't know if they're trying to compete, and I guess saying no use is a bit of a hyperbole there, but they're not going to try and actively keep Marcus Smart and use him and take away time from the young guys. However, you start to look at that paired with the report from Anthony Irwin that dropped the other day saying the Lakers are showing interest in Matisse Thybulle, Ayo Dosunmu, and Marcus Smart. It makes things very intriguing. And again, I think there's a couple different options here. If some other teams step up to the dish and want to trade for Marcus Smart, then obviously the Lakers would also have to put up and potentially trade for Smart. If he now gets into a buyout scenario because of the trade that happened with the San Antonio Spurs with the Wizards, it makes things a lot easier if you're the Los Angeles Lakers to fit it into your scheme. So you can literally just buy him out, or if you're the Wizards, and then of course the Lakers can go ahead and sign him. Now there's a couple different things, but before we get into the trade, let's look at his stats just to kind of refresh you guys. One defensive player of the year 5 years ago. Since then has been on a decent stretch here. He had a really good 20 games in Memphis, and of course, in 2023, he's been dealing with injuries. A little bit injury prone as of late, but again, with the Wizards last season, 9 points a game. Like, he's a very solid shooter. Had a great shooting year with his 15 games with the Wizards. Overall, he's a below average 3-point shooter on his career, but had a decent stretch last year. he is being brought in not for his shooting, not for his, playmaking, although he's capable of it. Of course, would be the backup point guard on this team, but it's for his defense, and he would be a point of attack defender. And we know reports are coming out that they're trying to get a defensive player on the wing. And the perimeter is, Marcus Smart's technically a point guard, but he would be a perfect, wing defender. He is a really, really good defensive-minded player. And of course, that's something that the Lakers desperately need. There's a huge hole in their team. Now, let's assume for a second the buyout isn't available or there's other teams that are looking to trade. This was an interesting trade that came up. Gabe Vincent, Maxi Kleber, and a second-round pick. Now, Marcus Smart was on an expiring $21.6 million contract, and the Lakers would have to send Vincent and Kleber to match. And of course, in this scenario, you are getting rid of Gabe Vincent, who is your backup point guard at this time. So then, of course, you would be replacing Gabe Vincent with Marcus Smart, so there wouldn't be a huge hole on your lineup. Now, this is if they don't want to wait and see if the Wizards buy out the deal, because, there is a chance, there's been some rumblings about the Lakers having a lot of faith in a guy like Maxi Kleber. If they would rather keep that asset, makes sense. But at this point, this is basically salary dump and a second-round pick. Not entirely sure the Lakers would want to give up because they don't have a ton of assets remaining. I don't know if they'd want to give up, a second-round pick in 2032 for Smart. But it totally depends on if teams are willing to trade for him. Now, again, buyout would be absolute best case scenario here. I don't think it's the most likely case scenario. I think a trade could definitely happen between these two sides. And at the end of the day, whether it's a trade or a buyout, things have fallen pretty perfectly into place here for the Lakers because he's a very solid player. There's been a lot of players available. We think about, DeAndre Ayton. He became available out of nowhere, almost gifted into Rob Pelinka's lap, and then boom, he got a starting center for the future. You think about Jake LaRavia, obviously that didn't fall into his lap. He made a good call signing him. But other than that, you need to go out and get other players. And of course, whether that is any of these three guys, Marcus Smart, Matisse Thybulle, who is more known as a wing defender. There's other potential targets, of course. And, Andrew Wiggins, for example, Matisse Thybulle, again, I don't think he would cost very much. And then Herb Jones is obviously the dream target if you're the Lakers. There's a lot of ways that they can greatly, greatly improve their team. It's just a matter of what exactly the route Rob Pelinka has, because Rob Pelinka, obviously a very smart, very, very smart GM, right? He always has been. However, there is times where he gets a little bit complacent, and as a result, he doesn't go out and, he made a great trade with Luka. He got a beast. But at the same time, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, especially when you look at kind of how this team's shaping up. The bench, a little bit worrisome. Gabe Vincent, backup point guard, is that good enough? That's a big question mark. You have, Jake LaRavia. That's kind of the guy you're hoping who can score off the bench. Dalton Knecht, obviously, you want to take a huge step if you hold on to him. There's a lot of moving pieces here. The Lakers don't have a ton of assets. They do. They have, the 2031 first-round pick. They have 3 pick swaps they can trade, and they have Dalton Knecht. But regarding for a trade like Smart, you don't want to give up any of those key assets in a trade for Marcus Smart. But that'll wrap it up. Let me know down below specifically what you think of this trade. Do you think they should wait for a buyout? I think there's going to be other teams involved. Let me know down below what your thoughts are on all of this ahead of the big Summer League game tonight. Bronny versus Cooper Flag. Going to be fun to watch. We should be live for that as well, so make sure to stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.